everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Sayan Talks. Being addicted to something, somehow we may realize it or we may not realizing when we do it. Addiction is now classified as a disease that affects the brain, not a personal failure of or choice. In this episode, we are going to talk about addiction. As usual, I have a guest today, and I present to you Mr. Alex.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. Can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Alex, and I'm a recovering addict. I have roughly about 9 years of clean time. I'm a musician by trade. I'm a husband, a father, and Kuching born and raised fellow citizen, I guess.
Mhm.
What else? What else?
What do
is
you
there
work
to-
as?
Like I said, I work in the. I'm a musician by trade, but I think one of the big things I'm known for now is that I'm a music stage curator for What About Kuching Festival.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's impressive. All right. Addictions is defined as not having control over doing, taking, or using something to the point where it could be harmful to us. Most people think of substances use when they hear about addictions, but that's not the only type of addictions. I found out that there's two type of addictions. First is the chemical addictions,
That's right.
such as drugs, alcohol, smoking, nicotine and stuff, while the other one is behavioral addictions, which are porn, gambling, gaming, shopping, cars, racing, and maybe social media. So Alex, would you mind sharing how you relate addiction to your life?
Well, I identify as an addict primarily because of my experience. I was a suffering addict for many years, for at least about 10 years before I recovered before I went to rehabilitation in 2014. And so addiction is a big part of my life. I still identify as an addict even though I've been recovered because it helps me remember where I've been and how far I've come. And it's a culture in the NA fellowship to always, remind yourself to keep in mind that we are always an addict, and we are always an addict, and for the rest of our lives, for our experience. I know there's a lot of stigma behind it in society. A lot of people, if they've had a past with addiction, usually their typical instinct is to try to put their past behind them. But my past actually informs me about my current decision here and now. And it's always important for me to remember that, that I am not stronger than these substances, that these things have conquered me and they can conquer me if I don't make the right decision. And that's why moving forward in my life, I always will identify as an addict.
What makes you fall into the addiction?
Oh well, it's not really. I don't think it was one thing. It was a lot of things. But basically, I fell into it as a coping mechanism for things that I could not handle in life. So I come from a upper middle aged family, upper middle class family, and my parents were divorced when I was very young, and I always felt different from everybody else growing up. So I'm also an only child. So to cope with to connect, I had a strong desire to connect with people. And one of the ways that I radically acted out and tried to connect with people was through substances. Primarily, it was alcohol. But when as I grew older and alcohol got kind of old for me, I started to seek out things. So I actually sought out, illicit substances that I could use to get high.
Okay, what is your family? What is your tanggapan your family when they know that you're an addict?
Of course, I mean, like,
How do they know? And
well, I as an addict, I lied to them about it for many years,
Okay.
That I wouldn't. Oh, no, I don't do that. I just drink alcohol. I just smoke cigarettes. So they never knew.
Okay.
But I think it got to a point where, my mom kept knocking on the door and asked me what I was doing and said, "Let me show you what I'm doing."
Really?
So yeah, that
Really?
really happened. Yeah. So I got to a point where I got tired of lying and I just told her, "Yeah, I'm an addict."
So did they get mad of you?
I mean, they were upset. I think they were more. My mom was more upset than they were mad. Yeah, they were. I mean, like they were very sad about it. They were very worried, of course, about me. Yeah.
You told me that you pernah masuk lockup, right?
Yes.
Okay, like how did you macam ni you boleh tiba-tiba masuk lockup tamnya?
Oh,
Cerita ya.
that story. I was abusing pharmaceuticals when I was about 19, about the age of 19 or 18. And we just went pharmacy, just me and a bunch of friends. The go-to thing to do to get high was go pharmacy shopping, go and buy a bunch of, pills, usually, coughing tablets, and overdose on them pretty much.
All right.
So when you overdose on this particular chemical, you start to experience a euphoric state of mind, and you get hallucinations, a little bit like LSD. And I learned it from the kids on the street, and it became the thing to do. Almost every weekend. So it became a growing habit, and people started noticing me and a bunch of friends hanging out at a particular cyber cafe for a long time, and then somebody just called the cops, and a whole bunch of us got raided. Yeah, so I ended up in lockup. Yeah, for the first time in my life, and my parents had to bail me out. I was about 18 or 19 at the time.
Okay. When you say your family is upset to you, then how about the society around you? How do they perceive about that?
I really don't know. I couldn't really say. I wasn't very conscious about what other people were saying about me or my family. You could also say that, my state of mind that time was I didn't want to care about what other people think. I just did me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like it was also a defensive mechanism. Like, that state of mind I was in was kind of like, you know what? You want to think I'm a drug addict? So what? I'm a drug addict. I don't care you think I'm a drug addict,
It's like the I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
line.
absolutely did not give.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I've read that the causes of addictions, there are some of causes of addiction such as the biological factors, gender, age, and environmental pressure. Biological factors depend on an individual toward their tolerance toward the addictions, because researchers found that if you have a closer genetic to those who have doing the drug or drug addicts, most likely around 40% to 60% might easily addicted to it, but that doesn't mean the person can easily succumb to the addictions. But for the gender, women tend to have more quicker addiction than men. But that is more onto the behavioral addictions. For example, women they tend to have addicted to shopping, while men may be gambling and also gaming. And then while age, most young adults are addicted to substances and alcohol because it's like a new thing for them. Baru nak merasa kata orang. Most likely. Because now dekat bar is kebanyakan orang anak muda. Right? Because nya baru nak cerik. And while older people might already bored of it because dah lepas era.
Well, so the thing is, when you say researchers say about all these different factors about the inclination for a person to be likely addicted, right? I can tell you for a fact that my father and my grandfather were addicts. Okay, my grandfather died of alcoholism, and my father was a gambling addict, and I was a drug addict in the family. So you could say that it is passed on through genetics, but then, I feel that any academic who says that it is purely genetic, we'll be missing out the fact that if you were living in a family with another addict, that kind of normalizes it for you. So you see, I grew up watching my parents using, different coping mechanisms in their life, which they didn't think were wrong. Like for my dad, he was addicted to gambling, but I grew up around it like as if it's a normal activity, even though it was illegal mostly.
Yeah.
But that's the funny thing. When you grow up in a typical Chinese family, gambling is illegal. But back in the day when during my parents' generation, they were doing it. With a whole bunch of their friends together at a house.
Yeah, yeah.
They would gather in their house
Mahjong.
in a small room.
Yeah.
And gamble. Until early hours of the morning. A whole bunch of them. It's illegal, but they still do it. And then so during my time was a whole bunch of my friends gathering up in my room, listening to music, smoking weed, or doing other drugs, taking pills.
Oh my God.
Smoking meth.
Yeah.
I've done everything that came through the door pretty much. So anything that I could get my hands on, I did. I had no personal restrictions on whatever. I just like, is that drug? Give me some. If it's something I never tried before, I'll try it.
Yeah, because the other causes is the environmental pressure. It is like the highest cause because I don't have to explain a lot because we can see if it depends on who you hang out with. If you see someone is hang out with those drug addicts, they might be one of the drug addicts. Same goes to alcoholic. Do you think you agree with that?
I think people can be drawn into experimenting with drugs through peer pressure to hang out with the wrong crowd. A person like me, I looked for the wrong crowd. So there wasn't anyone telling me, oh, this is the wrong crowd to hang with, or this is the right crowd to hang with. It did not. I mean, like if somebody told me this was the wrong crowd to hang with, I would go and look for them. But I think when you talk about environment, I can tell you this: when I was taking a lot of drugs as a young adult, my girlfriend and wife and future and eventually my wife took everything I did. Oh. If I took a drug, she would take it. She would go down on it with me.
Wow.
Completely. Everything. I did not restrict her. So she did exactly everything I did. I may have done a bit more, but I got addicted. She did not.
Okay.
And it really depends on different people. I mean, like everybody can experiment with drugs.
Okay.
And I think I won't encourage it if you don't know what you're doing, but I see it as, experimenting with substances, alcohol, drugs. For me, that's part of normal life. But that doesn't always mean that you get addicted. What I found on different cases and also the different research that I have done, personally, and also discussions with other experts other addiction experts. The one thing that actually was a big determinant on whether someone got addicted was usually whether they had a good or bad connection with their nuclear family. See, so I had kind of a broken family. We were upper middle class, but we were broken. My parents were divorced when I was very young. So for me to follow addiction was very much easier for me than it was for my wife, because my wife would do drugs, but then, she had this loving family around her. So she didn't really need to, keep doing it all the time. It was just, it was doing it when it's there. But I would seek it out because I didn't know this back then, but I constantly felt this unease in my life because of, a sort of a maladjusted upbringing and a maladjusted family background. So if, you're if you're well connected and you have a good, emotional support system, it's unlikely that you would fall into addiction. Do you remember that experiment?
Which one?
The one they said about putting the rat in the cage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they just had the just the regular water and the drug water, right? That typical experiment that everyone's heard of. It was done sometime in the 70s. Basically, what happens is if you put a rat in a cage, and give it options, whether it's the normal water, regular water, or the morphine water, the rat would take the morphine water each time, and it would keep taking it until it overdosed and eventually died. So back then, scientists thought, oh, this is what happens. There's chemical hooks in drugs to get you addicted, and it kills you. But sometime in the 90s, someone looked at this experiment and looked at it and said, well, there's something wrong with this experiment because the rat is alone in that cage. It has nothing to do, right? So that person did a different experiment by doing this, amazing huge enclosure where there's many rats. There's they could run around, they could play. There's many things for them to do. They gave them the same option, and the result was staggering in the fact that none of the rats ever touched the drug water, and they didn't really like. They found that they didn't really like it very much, and none of them use it compulsively. So you went from, absolutely almost 99 or 100% deaf in the first experiment to 0% overdose in the next experiment. So when scientists looked at this, they realized that, the addiction's not about the drug. It's about your cage. It's about your life. If you feel like your life is a cage that you cannot escape from, you are going to latch onto something that makes you feel good. And drugs make you feel good because, it gives you that instant chemical relief of feeling good. So that's what it is about. So when you talk about substances or any kind of addiction, even as a behavioral addiction, addiction is the symptom, right, of the disease. The underlying condition of a person's life when they get addicted is something much deeper, which I found out, was for me, it was really, truly, it was trouble with my family. It was that problem that I had at home that carried on all the way into my later years. And I didn't even realize it was that. I wouldn't believe you if you told me that was what it was back then. But then, after going through the program, after going through rehab, and after talking through a lot of, therapists, and it was truly that. I could not deny the fact that, it was that. That I was so trained because of my family background to believe that I wasn't worthy of love and my life did not matter. So when I was instilled with those core principles and those core beliefs in my life, it didn't matter. I would take anything that made me feel good at that time. And even when I was a still suffering addict, I found my suicide letter.
Oh shit.
So for me, that time when I was a still suffering addict, I was too cowardly to actually commit suicide. But for me was, if I died from my drug use, I was just okay. That was my state of mind back then. Yeah. If I had passed away. And mind you, I already had a wife and kid.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's all right. And I have no regrets about what I've been through because I'm lucky, I'm grateful to have survived. I'm grateful that I'm still alive. But that experience is very precious and very sacred to me because I'm very happy to be sober now and clean, and I can go to any pub and any bar
without taking it.
Without taking any, not even alcohol.
You don't drink now?
I don't even drink now.
Not even a beer?
No, absolutely not.
Wow.
There are a couple of reasons for that. One is that I realize that even when I'm sober, I don't always make the right decision. So if I take something that compromises the decisions I make, I might suddenly call my dealer when I'm drunk and say, I want to try it. I want to get back into the game again. But also I noticed that when I was in rehab, lots of people came in of different addictions, meth addiction, heroin addiction. And you could tell You know, you could tell which kind of substances they were into, whether they were into heroin or meth. But when you saw the alcoholics come in, they were at their worst. They looked pale. They looked like they were about to die. And alcohol is a drug like everything else, but it's a legal drug. So anyone who's an alcoholic, when they get out, they can just go around the corner to a coffee shop and get themselves their drug of choice. Whereas someone who is into illicit drugs, you know, they have a lot of more barriers and a lot of more hurdles and a lot of more deterrents to stop them from relapsing. But for an alcoholic, it's easy to relapse. So seeing that made me decide that, man, I don't want to touch alcohol. So I decided to stay away from all substances, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol. I think my only vice right now is nicotine. But, you know, that's a relatively...
Still okay. Yeah.
Kind of okay. It doesn't affect my behavior, and it doesn't make my life unmanageable.
What was your biggest major turning point that I want to stop? Like betul-betul tak nak.
I didn't want to stop. I really didn't want to stop.
But there must be the major.
I think the turning point was that when I hit rock bottom, and you know, I was a suffering addict back at home for many years. I didn't have a job. I didn't do anything with my life. I just sat in my room and did drugs every day. You know, for a long time, and I thought, man, if I keep doing this, I'm just gonna die. You know, but I think the turning point was when the kind of help that was offered seemed more appealing to me. So I was given the option to go to a private rehab center, which is very expensive. But the deal breaker for that was that I actually spoke to the director, and the director told me that he was an addict himself, you know, and that he's been through things. And I'm saying, like, so immediately I started to understand, oh, you're just like me, but you're sober and you're well. And when I went to the rehab, I met other people who were either the senior counselors or the recovery coaches, and they were all ex-addicts. And you know, when I got there, they didn't tell me to do anything. They started telling me their story. So, and their stories were sometimes even crazier. You know, I won't mention his name, but I met a doctor. I met a military British doctor who was over 60 years old.
All right.
And the time he was into heroin, and he did not need to get it off the street. He just went to the dispensary in England and signed for it, and he got free drugs. And the drugs were like 50, 40, 100 times more powerful than anything you can get on the street. And he was injecting it. And he never lost the job. He had two cars, you know, he had 2 cars in the garage, big house, you know, but one day his friend walked in on him while he was injecting, and he just felt like he couldn't lie anymore. And that's when he decided, oh shit, I need help. Yeah. So sometimes people hit different rock bottoms. There's that term that, you know, that addicts in recovery called rock bottom, was when you hit rock bottom, there was nothing else to go, and that's when you seek for help. Not everybody has to hit rock bottom before they realize they have a problem, but I did. I did not know a way out. I absolutely did not have any clue that how I was going to get out of this. You know, I came from many years of experimenting with drugs, so that I thought I was invincible. You know, I took weed, I took pills, and I said, you know, I have no problem with this. I never felt addicted. And then I tried meth, and then that's the first time I felt, you know, withdrawal symptoms from, you know, taking meth for an extended period of time and then not doing it, you know, and I kept needing it. I needed it every day, every moment. I could not go sober for a minute. And I stayed like that for, you know, many years. I got to the point where I was smoking meth, and I fell asleep smoking meth. So that's not supposed to happen. And I know I told myself, and I usually smoked it, and I told myself, you know, I would never inject. I hate needles. You know, even if I go to the doctor today and ask me to draw my blood, right?
No thanks.
I would say no thank. I mean, like if I had to do it, fine. It would be an excruciating experience for
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the last person who would think that I would stick anything in my arm and take intravenous drugs. I did. Eventually, I did. Eventually to get, to get a more powerful high, I eventually resorted to that. So I mean, like, that's that is seriously like the classic things. You say, I'll never steal. A lot of addicts say, oh no, I'll never steal my mom's wedding ring and pawn it off for money just to buy drugs. But then I did.
You did?
I didn't, but I mean that's an example.
Oh,
But
okay.
people would say that I would never steal, I would never rob anybody to get for money to buy drugs, but eventually they do. So sometimes when they do, they realize that, I've hit rock bottom. I'm not, just out of sheer desperation, because I need this substance to make me feel okay in the constant pain that I'm experiencing. I mean, like, humans would do it. Anybody would do it. Anybody that's experiencing constant pain, and you tell them that, and they know from experience that this substance would make them feel okay for a while, they would look for it.
Yeah.
They would look for it all the time.
Yeah.
And they would do it all the time. And just from my experience, I mean, I wanted to stay pain-free all the time. I got high every time.
I've read that addiction disrupts the normal brain function, especially in the reward system. When you do something nice, whether it's like hanging out with your friend, drinking a bottle of wine, or using cocaine, your reward system release the dopamine and other neurotransmitter. Dopamine,
Yeah.
contrary to popular assumptions, does not appear to induce sensations of pleasure or euphoria. Instead, it appears to cement your brain's relationship between particular objects and feelings of pleasure, prompting you to seek them out again in the future. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's very true, actually. So that's a big contributor to the argument that addiction is a disease rather than a problem of choice. So what happens inside the addict's brain is that when you indulge in substances, or you indulge, or you involve yourself, or you practice an activity that you're addicted to, whether it be gambling, sex, or exercise, or whatever. So your brain starts to tell you, oh, this feels good, and it's better than it was expected. So your brain is going to remember that, and tells yourself that you should look for this again. The next time you see it, you should do this again when you have the opportunity. That's just how the brain normally works. It's a part of our survival mechanism. I mean, like, you ask anybody, which one tastes better to eat, broccoli or chocolate cake? Everyone
Of course.
will say chocolate cake, but because your brain tells you, because chocolate cake has more energy in it.
And it feels good.
And that's why, because it has more energy in it, your brain will tell you, this is really good. You should look out for this in wherever you go, because this will give you more sustenance. This will give you the best reward. So, and that's how pretty much addiction works. It's basically your brain adopting reward systems that are unrealistic. So, your brain, because the way some substances, for instance, meth, what it does is that it overwhelms your pleasure system. It basically, it cranks it up to abnormally high levels that are not usually achievable by your normal body. So not only meth, but heroin and all that. So what happens to an addict when they're so used to those levels of pleasure? Those levels of pleasure become normalized, and so that normal functioning lifestyles, such as food, love from your family, those things that normally are usually enough for us as human beings, are no longer sufficient. So that's why addicts keep seeking out their drug of choice, whether it be meth, alcohol, gambling, sex,
Okay.
all those things.
I think, but in my case, I have a behavioral addiction. I don't know. Can I say that it's a behavioral addictions because I feel like I have an addictions towards social media.
Okay.
Okay.
Please
So
explain.
when I do my work, I try my best not to take a look on my phone.
Okay.
And I'm not sure whether this is like ADHD or fear of missing out, like FOMO. When I'm doing my work, I keep thinking that, oh, there must be someone finding me, or there must be new news that I have to catch up on. But the truth is that there's no new notification at all. And I end up like procrastinating a lot. I try my best, like 100% focus, but it can only like limit for like 20 minutes that I have to check my phone. I think it's too much because it's like giving me an unhealthy way. I waste a lot of time. So Alex, do you think like addictions have, what's your opinion on
About
the
this? Okay.
addictions?
You're asking me if you're addicted to social
Yeah,
media.
yeah. Okay, that
Okay,
first.
okay. Well, here's the thing. This is a question to you. Has this made your life unmanageable?
Certain, because I waste a lot of time so that I push certain tasks to another hour.
Have you lost your job?
No.
Have you lost your house?
No.
Have you lost loved ones because of it? Have
No.
you lost everything in your life because of it?
No.
No. Okay. So I think that's an important thing to mention, at least for our viewers as well. How do you know you are dysfunctionally addicted to something? When the most important determinant of whether addiction is a problem is when your life becomes unmanageable. You can no longer, do the normal thing. You can no longer keep up with your regular responsibilities in life as a human being. If you are an addict that uses all their money on drugs, and because of that you are unable to pay for your electricity bill and all that kind of stuff, because your priorities are completely out of whack, that's when your life becomes unmanageable. But having said that, case in point, in this day and age, there is a larger case of people being addicted to devices and social media and information technology. And some of these can impact individuals almost as bad as a substance addiction. I went back to my rehab for an alumni visit. I had many years of clean time, and I decided to go visit my rehab to check up on them, and basically to hang out with my dear friends again. And I met a young addict who was a young boy who was addicted to computer games, and because he was away from his device, he was at the table crying and shivering like a heroin addict. So addiction to electronic devices, that can also become an addiction when it becomes an unmanaged state. But we also have to look at the background of where this kid is from. Maybe this kid is from maybe his home experience is that the game is the only thing he can do where he finds his peace, and that's why he becomes addicted to it. It goes back to the reward system, and also the environment that we just talked about. Your cage, your life as a cage, right? So if this becomes the only thing that gives you pleasure in life, and your family life is in turmoil, and your parents, just send you to school, and you do everything, and everything in life is just mundane to you, and this is the only thing that makes you feel good, you're gonna kind of keep doing that. A normal human being, a normal proclivity of a human being is to keep doing what makes them feel good. So, but when it becomes out of hand, it's when it becomes an addiction. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Okay. Now I think I'm not addicted. It's just my habit.
There are definitely levels to it. I mean, sometimes a habit can become an addiction, right?
But when it out of control and it harm your life, now we can say that it's an addiction.
It becomes a problem.
Yeah, it's become a problem. So what is your opinion on the impact of addictions in our quality of life?
Oh man, the quality of life. I mean, like, you ain't kidding, man. I mean, that's why suffering addicts don't want to stay suffering addicts. That's why they seek, eventually, like me, we seek help, because quality of life was terrible. I mean, eventually, at least from my experience, I was willing to let go of everything until there was nothing left but me and the drug. Yeah, my wife left me, took the kid away because she was too scared.
But you said previously she would jump into together with the...
Yes, but she didn't become addicted. But she saw how it became a problem for me, and that scared her.
Okay.
So, at some point in my life when I was living in Kuala Lumpur, she took the kid and ran because she felt like I was too dangerous to be around.
Yeah.
When I was, the extent of things that I would resort to get my drug of choice when I couldn't have it was very extreme. I was
aggressive
and even violent.
Oh.
I was even violent.
So you would like nang hilang akal sebab si dapat that kind of drug, so you out of your mind.
I was downright abusive.
Okay.
Absolutely downright abusive. I mean, like, that's the truth of the matter. I became violent. I became abusive. She suffered a lot because of me. And God bless this woman, man, because she's still with me now. She's been with me through my worst. And she had to stay away for a while where she felt that she was no longer helping, and I totally understand that. But then when I was willing to reach, in fact, it was her that actually asked me, "Do you want to speak to this addiction specialist from this rehab center?" And I said yes immediately, and I decided to go and seek help. Finally, when I was at my rock bottom.
We can identify if someone is currently on addictions, and we can see through their working life, their performance, physical appearance, how they present themselves. And we keep on saying that addictions is a bad thing. So do you think there's a good addictions or positive addiction? Probably like book addiction, fitness addiction, gym rat and stuff?
Well, again, it depends on the extent of which you do it. I know there are some people who are fitness addicts. They consider themselves, it's not wrong to be fit. I mean, I could use a bit of fitness addiction myself, but there are some people, that we've known that would resort to these activities to the extent where they harm they actually harm themselves. One example, one severe example you could say is people who take steroids for bodybuilding. They would resort to that just for the
steroid, right?
Yeah, like steroids to get bigger and get strong and get bigger muscles.
Gain faster.
Gain faster and all these. Yeah, so they will resort to these kind of things. So that comes in part with the the fitness addiction. I don't think I've heard of a person who is addicted to books to the point where their life has become unmanageable. I think you could, I guess, hypothetically, be a book addict if you couldn't stop yourself from buying a book every time you went out to a shopping mall or a bookstore.
Oh yeah, maybe.
And you end up with a house full of books and nobody can walk. There's like just books packed up everywhere. You can't even get to the toilet. There's just books everywhere because you just collected books. Yeah, it can be a problem.
Or you spend a lot of money on
books that you never read.
Or you like waste. You can say, can I say like waste money on books until you like break your bank?
Break your bank? Yeah. You could, I guess. I mean, like hypothetically, you could. You could also be this person who refuses to do anything but read. Doesn't refuse to engage in anybody.
Okay.
But absolutely just, like he won't go, I won't go to work because I'm too excited about reading this book. Oh, I've got bills to pay. But no, this book is more important. Reading this book is more important right now. That would be, that I think would, I guess, classify as someone who is a book addict, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, there is no positive addiction, because the truth is that if like the word itself is addiction, it have to be it need to be like there's negative consequences in the life of an individual, because addictions by definitions is like causes harm to a person, yet the person continues to engage to it with this same behavior. Because to put in simply, the addiction is never a good thing. So-called positive addictions are just good habits, because like understanding the gap between addictions and habit can be difficult at first, because addictions is not depend on time or amount it consume. It's more about causing harm and losing control. Take the example like work addict. If you a person can be addicted to work, right? And many of us know that workaholism is a thing. And if you are working insane hours and have the compulsion to work and have the loose control of your ability to regulate your life, your work life, you are probably a workaholic.
Yeah, I mean, your health is compromised for sure. If you continue to choose working in spite of your health risk, that is a problem. So I mean, like, I guess I know where you're getting at, but I also in my opinion as well, the way I see it, or the way I would see it, is that actually there are no good or bad substances. I mean, crystal methamphetamine or cannabis or all these substances, when they're sitting on a shelf, they're not bad or good things. It's how we humans use it.
Yeah, it can be
You know,
good,
yeah.
but you just don't overuse it.
Yeah, but then there are certain, okay, like I would say heroin, diamorphine, and crystal meth. I mean, like, okay, let's look at heroin. People say that heroin is a street drug, but actually what it is diamorphine. When you have a surgery, the painkillers that they give you, that's diamorphine. Technically, you're taking heroin to deal with the pain when you undergo surgery. So in a way, you could say, under the right circumstances, heroin is a very critical pain relief for some people. I mean, I've had surgery before, and I've had family that had endured surgery before. I would keep asking the doctor to continually give them painkillers because they're in so much pain. But, you know, when a person uses it when they don't need it because they like it, they enjoy it, then it becomes a problem, right? So the substance itself, that's not good or bad. It's how human beings use it.
So what is your advice to those people that are struggling with addiction and trying to get out of it?
The most important advice I would give is firstly to recognize that you're an addict. Again, we talked about this. The most important determinant fact of whether or not you're an addict is not how much you use or how much you do or what you do. It's whether or not that thing has made your life unmanageable and you clearly need help. And the second piece of advice, which is related to that first part, is to seek help. A lot of people who are addicted to stuff, or when they have a problem, they either refuse to admit they have a problem, or when they know they have a problem, they are too scared to ask for help because they don't know how to ask for help, or they don't know who to go to, or they don't know who to trust. In my case I did not know who to trust. I eventually trusted only somebody else who I knew was an addict and went through what I went through. Because if somebody else came up to me and said, I can help you, how can you help me? You don't know what I'm going through. You know, I was from that state of mind where, you know, you don't know me, I don't trust you because you don't know what I'm going through.
If kau dah experience, percaya
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, you have to find someone yang dah melalui benda ya, baru you boleh trust and follow yang pun footstep.
Yeah, and that actually, on a little bit of a tangent, that's actually an important component in the recovery program. It's kind of counterintuitive because a lot of people would believe an addict can't help an addict because they're both the same, right? Actually, the addict is the best
Helper.
The best help that a suffering addict can have. You know, a recovering addict is the best help that a suffering addict can have, because like we addicts know addicts, you know, we know what it's like. So they know that's why a person who's been through it They know what it's like, and they can empathize and they can identify with the person. And the person who is being helped can identify that, oh, I've gone through. So and you seem okay right now. So that was like my experience. I met other addicts who were fine. They've been through, addiction just like mine or worse than me, and they're healthy now. So what they're doing seems to be working. So that gave me a sense of hope. So it's very important. I think the best advice I would give most addicts is that seek help, because there are people who have recovered from addiction. Addiction is not a death sentence for anyone. It's just your willingness to seek help. You just have to be willing. You just have to be honest, and you just have to be open-minded. Those are the three important things that you need to be: being open-minded, willingness, and honest.
Okay, Alex, we also received some question regarding these addictions when I asked about addictions on my IG story. So I might need you to answer it quickly, maybe in some points. The first question is how to manage alcohol addiction.
Alcoholism. Okay. That one, I would, just like drug addiction, just like any drug addiction, I would suggest, if you really feel that you need help, please seek help whenever it's available. Wherever it's available, you could look online. There are some centers that will also provide services. Like, basically, I mean, for me, the best idea is to check into rehab. I think, for my case, checking into rehab was the best thing that ever happened in my life.
Can I say, if they say that how to manage this alcoholism, can I just say, don't go to the bar, don't simply drink?
Well, that's the thing. You don't have to be at the bar to drink for an alcoholic, right? So, I mean, I think the short answer to that question, how do you manage alcoholism? The fact that you have alcoholism means that it's unmanageable.
Now we stop drinking. But we can't say that, right?
Alcoholics can't stop themselves.
Damn.
Yeah, alcoholics can't stop themselves. You can threaten them, like, say, if you don't stop drinking, I'll leave you. Like, that's what a wife of an alcoholic would say. And that person might stop drinking if you threaten them with things that are dear to them. They might stop drinking, but it doesn't stop them from feeling they need to drink, and that doesn't stop the misery. That doesn't stop the suffering. You see, so someone who is an alcoholic has to seek treatment. There's no way to really manage it. The fact that you're an alcoholic already underpins the fact that it's unmanageable.
Okay, so okay. The next one is addict to being alone after MCO. So let me read it out. Boleh sih kita bagi nasihat sikit untuk orang yang addict dah mau being alone walaupun doloknya si camnya. Sebab after MCO kami jadi camnya. Susah mau surround dengan orang lama-lama walaupun orangnya kami rapat sekalipun. Kami selalu rasa selamat je if kami di rumah je. Walaupun time waktu bekerja nang gila-gila energi kami drain oleh socialize dengan orang. How to overcome? Kami mau socialize dengan orang macam dulu sebab it's a must juga nak mau socialize. Sebab kami tahu banyak benda yang kita dapat gain, new thing or benefit dari socialize dengan orang. Tapi kini kami mudah mau drain energy. So this person saying that how to overcome the addictions of being alone.
Okay, that's a little bit of a new one for me. I'm not sure what is the mechanism that causes this person to seek out isolation. Is it because they enjoy the alone? They're actively seeking out the alone time because it gives pleasure to them, or whether it's a fear of, it's a anxiety they feel of being in the presence of people. So I think that has to be addressed in the case. It doesn't really, to be fair, it doesn't really sound like an addiction to me. But case in point, I think the best thing for this person to do is to seek help from, like, say, a professional therapist. They need to go to someone and actually ask for help. If they don't have the resources to do so, what they can do is to take baby steps, take one thing at a time. So, start with hanging out, spending time with one person. And then when they feel more comfortable, spend time with two. If there are underlying issues behind the need for being alone, then that has to be addressed. Because, like I said, the activity or the need or the addiction is not the disease, it's the symptom of the underlying condition. Having said that, as addicts, isolation is a big no-no for addicts, because when we are alone, we will indulge in our addiction, especially in the presence of when we're in the absence of other people. So it's not a good idea for addicts to be alone. There's a saying that's really important to me. I shouldn't be hanging out with myself because I'm hanging out with the last person who tried to kill me. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. And then?
Yeah, because I almost killed myself, so I shouldn't be just with myself.
Yeah.
I should be in the presence of people. The opposite, another saying that came from a talk I heard is that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. Because addiction stops your ability from genuinely, truly connecting with other people. And as human beings, we're a social animal. We need that connection.
Yeah.
It's the absence of that connection that causes us to seek out substances and other activities to make us feel complete. But actually, we don't need those things. We just need to feel connected. With people.
Yeah. And I feel like this Anon is more on a social anxiety.
Could be, but
Yeah.
it's I like again, as much as my experience informs me to be able to say all these things in this talk and answer these questions, I'm not an academic, an official expert on the subject. I'm just sharing my experience.
True. We both not an expert on giving these advices, but we just talk from our experience.
Yeah, so seek an expert.
Yeah, seek an expert.
Yeah.
Okay, the last questions is sex texting addiction. Is sex texting addictions is a sickness? How to deal with guy who loves sexting, and is there any treatment for this addiction?
Okay, let's answer the last part first. There is treatment for this. Sexting?
Yeah, it's texting.
Sex texting, i.e. sexting, is part of an addiction called sex and love addiction. Okay? There's an actual group for it. It's called SLA. It's a Sex and Love Anonymous.
Is it behavioral or chemical?
It's behavioral. It's
And
mostly
chemical.
behavioral. I mean, anything is chemical, but because the behavior causes the chemical reaction and the reward system in the brain to work. But sex and love addiction is a real thing. People who are who can't help themselves, and usually they end up in situations that are, like for instance, toxic relationships. Their relationships usually tend to become toxic because they're seeking that high again and again. I am going to relate a story that I have from personal experience with a person that I know.
Okay.
It's not really my story to tell, but I think it's important to share to other people so that maybe someone out there can relate. I knew a person who was a sex addict in my personal group, and that person, when they came to the group, was not very convinced that they were a sex addict because they felt that they're not addicted to drugs or alcohol. I'm not like these people. I don't take drugs, I don't drink. But he clearly had a problem. So I asked him in the group session. I asked him, "Let me ask you this. Do you feel a body rush when you call up somebody that you are having an illicit affair with?" And the answer was yes. Mm-hmm. And so in that way, that behavior has that same chemical reward, reward chemical reaction in the brain, and that's what caused this person to continuously seek out, illicit affairs. This person was a married person with kids and all that, and the wife was, educated enough to realize that he has a problem, and advised him to seek help. And I'm glad he did, because through the program, he was able to to understand what he was going through and be able to seek treatment in a sense. And treatment, as in, we're not talking about taking a medicine. There's no magic pill to help you with any kind of addiction. It really is a lot of work on yourself, work with other people, working a good solid 12-step program actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sex addiction itself is a disease.
It's
Do
a
you
small
agree?
part. It's a small part of a bigger addiction. If this person, I mean, like, it also depends whether this person is unmanageable, that it has that activity made that his life unmanageable, or or harmed people, or affected people that are close to him. For instance, a person who is in a relationship who can't stop cheating, that's a clearly a very likely case of a person who is suffering from sex and love addiction. Also, in a way, sorry, I lost my train of thought right there. So these kind of people need to seek help.
Sure.
If they can't help themselves. Some of these people don't even realize it. Some people think that it's just normal thing. It's just normal behavior. It's fine if it's normal behavior, but the question is, has you made your life unmanageable? Has it affected your relationship with people, genuine people who care about you? That's what you have to ask yourself. Yeah.
Okay, how do you think? Okay, you as a guy, so
Sorry, how do you deal with this person? If the question is from another person saying, how do you deal with, don't deal with this person.
don't deal.
Don't deal with this person.
Just block.
It's not a deal. It's not a deal you can make. This person clearly has a problem, and they need to address it and find out whether they want to get it, want to work on it. So when we're talking about recovery and rehabilitation, a lot of it has to come from the choice of the addict themselves. If an addict you can't help an addict that doesn't want to be helped. And I know, because I was one of those people. At one point, I didn't want to be helped because I didn't think that anybody could help me, and I didn't trust anybody. But when I knew that somebody could help me, I was willing to, I was willing to receive that help. And when you receive that help, it might not be the help you want, or might be the help that you like. But usually, it's the help you need. So, that's I think important to recommend out there. That, again, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be open-minded. You keep an open mind about it, and you have to be willing.
Willing to receive also.
Willing to receive, willing to listen. When I was trying to seek help, I thought I was the smartest person in the room. I was telling the doctor how to treat my condition. When the doctor said that, you're very smart, but that didn't get you anywhere. You see, I thought I was really smart, but I was still an addict. I was questioning the doctor about their methods. I thought I was smart. But so what I had to do was that I had to realize that my intelligence didn't get me anywhere. I was still suffering from a problem, and to be able to receive help, I must listen. I must open my mind, open my heart, and listen to the help that was being given.
Okay. Seeing addiction clearly can be hard. It's not always easy to tell which side of the fence a person is on, and they need to see it for themselves. Finally, if you want to know if you're addicted, you must dig deep and determine whether you rely on the activity to make you feel okay and continue it, despite the fact that it is significantly harm other areas in your life. Getting out of the grip of addiction is a whole different can of worms.
It's not easy, and nobody can always. No, most people can't do it alone.
Yeah, but
So you need help.
yeah, but the point is that you can have addictions or a good habit. There's no positive addictions. If you start accruing consequences and still have the desire to continue the behavior, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
At that moment, the behaviors returns begin to dwindle and it begins to control you. I think that's enough for today's episode. And likewise, always reach out to me for any inquiries on my bio link. And last but not least, don't forget to share, subscribe.
What are we sharing here?
YouTube. Don't forget to share, subscribe,
and
and
like.
like. Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And last but not least, don't forget to share,
Subscribe and like.
like. Bye.
Bye.